Hello and welcome to Talking About My Generation. I'm Herbert Ricardo here with Alicia Vassar. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about Zoom as a video conferencing mechanism. We're actually using that right now, and also Chatgpt. We're going to be looking at how they influence how we work. And again, like I like to use the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's always a good side, clearly to technology and how we use it for efficiency and everything else. But then also, there's also a balance with that, and how sometimes it takes away from the human component. And I think as you and I talk more, Alicia, about some of these areas in the workplace. Of course, we're going to be talking about other things too, but technology, as much as it's really good for us, it does take a little bit away from the human connection. And what does that really do for us in the workplace, and then also from a social perspective? So, um, Alicia, chime in. What do you think?
So I think starting on the Zoom aspect, I think it's really important to say this wouldn't exist without Zoom, especially when you're talking about you're going to be traveling soon. It's very convenient and useful for us to be able to, even though you're going to be in a completely different continent, we're going to still be able to do this podcast and communicate with each other.
Right. Yeah. So right out the gate, we can see how you and I are going to be connected through this mechanism. Of course, the old way would have been the phone, and then even we would have been able to just use email. But now, with the advancement of video conferencing, this is a mechanism. And so, and of course, the idea behind this is we can share this also with others. So, yeah, that's a great and useful tool for us. Yeah.
I think the convenience factor is really important because I think that's why you end up seeing it being used a lot in workplaces. Because especially when we talked in our international business class, globalization, we're bringing teams together from all kinds of places. So the idea of being able to communicate in that way is very useful.
Yeah. Zoom has made it really a cost-effective way of bringing departments together in the workplace, right? Instead of actually having to physically have everybody in a location. Obviously, they can stay, whether it's in a local environment, in your own town, your own cities. People can stay at home or in their various offices, and they can do that. But I have a little bit of a criticism behind using this level of technology, to replicate the workplace, and the fact that we're not sitting next to each other
Mhm.
in an office setting or wherever we might be, because I think you miss that human connection, and that human connection is what truly brings people together. As much as we're able to share ideas and thoughts through this way, I also look at the screen as a barrier. Okay,
Mhm.
and there's no doubt that it influences that. And of course, when I talk a little bit about innovation and creativity in the workplace, a lot of that is bouncing things off of each other, because you've got that person next to you, because you're engaging in, again, all this kind of like small minutia type conversation, and
Mhm.
through that, you can be that way. And so, this is one of those areas of Zoom. The other thing too is I hear that there's what's called Zoom fatigue,
Mhm.
where now, because it's so easy to have a meeting, suddenly supervisors and managers are having more and more and more of these meetings because it's just so easy to do. But is more always best, right?
Mhm.
That's the thing, and that's where we really want to in
I
the
think
curriculum.
something that interested me when you were talking is like there is this accessibility. And what I was thinking is one of the classes that I do at the Business Development Center or like a workshop is a Start Smart orientation. And there's two versions of them. There's a virtual version that we do over Zoom or Go Meeting, a similar platform. And then there's the in-person one. And there's a distinct difference between the connection that I'm able to get with the clients that end up showing up there. That's very different. And I find myself much more enjoying those in-person classes because it not only during like the class, it's easier to engage and like ask questions directly in person. But there's also before when people come in early, we have conversations. There's when people are about to leave, a lot of times they have extra questions and we'll end up being conversing and we'll get much deeper than if I was just doing that virtual class. And I think that kind of replicate or shows what you're talking about, like that quality.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so again, going along with what you just had to say, again, you've been in my classes. I teach face-to-face classes versus also
Mhm.
online classes. And now I may do a lecture on my online classes, and I'll tell my students, okay, come on in, and we're going to have, it's going to be a video, right? And and I see the hesitation of the students to turn on their cameras. It's almost like they don't want it. So suddenly they don't want to be on it, and I guess this is where this generation thing, I guess I'm really trying to understand it. You go on Facebook, Instagram, X, or wherever, TikTok, and young people don't have a problem whatsoever. Pictures, videos, and everything else, so they don't mind being on. And so then suddenly I ask my students, okay, we're going to go on a Zoom. And I'm like, hey, turn on your cameras. And um and now once they're on the camera, and I don't know if that now they become shy in front of everybody else, because they're in their workplace or whatever. Now, of course, some
Mhm.
will be in bed for whatever reason, right? Some of them will be in their dining room and other rooms, various places or whatever. But I guess what is interesting to me is, you're a generation that is not going to have less of this. You're a generation that's going to have more of this. There's going to be more, it seems that way anyway, that there's more connectivity through technology. That's what it's going to be.
Mhm.
And I don't know that um, it's completely embraced. As a matter of fact, in the workplace, people realize that you have to do it, and maybe in school, it seems like it's more optional, maybe,
Mhm.
and and I don't know, and maybe people don't. Maybe people don't, want to, and I can understand that. I can understand some people not wanting to be on a video, but clearly in the workplace, it's required. And but again, do you talk to your friends about,
So I
what do
think
you
I
think?
definitely saw the Zoom the blank screens because I remember it was a requirement for a couple of my online classes where they're like you have to you have to turn on your camera. And for me, I don't particularly understand it, but I think it's just much more convenient because it's something obviously classes, yes, people want to be there, but a lot of times it's part of their day. So maybe they're just like, I don't want to make sure that I look presentable on the camera, or maybe they don't have an area where they're able to uh, present themselves and it looks professional. It is a very strange thing that it seems that, especially when it comes to classes and online things, people do not want to put on their camera really. But I also think there's another level of it's technology. A lot of times I saw some of the older people in the classes, it was harder for them to figure out like how to get this thing to work. So I think there is also an aspect of that that goes past like my generation where it's this technology can become complicated. And even if you know what you're doing, like sometimes we'll have to start this and we're trying to figure out, okay, why is this speaker not working? Why is this thing
Right,
not working?
right. Yeah.
And I think that can be very distracting for people.
Sure, sure. Again, it's just one of those things. And, I'll continue to share. Obviously, this will be shared with the class too. And so, try to understand a little bit about, some of the ideas and reasons why people don't necessarily like it. But again, kind of going back, I think that we really need to start thinking about how much use that we do of video conferencing in the workplace, and recognizing the fact that it's really pulling out some of the human component. I do know for sure that in talking to some people that it's almost now when organizations are recruiting, you almost go through um, three three video interviews
Oh,
before um, you get in, before
hmm
you actually, get, get invited to the location and everything else. So suddenly you're having to put on your dress attire or whatever, and you have to make sure now your background is the way you want it to be, because it's a reflection of you. It's a representation of you, and that's another thing too, with Zoom. We're using specifically Zoom, but of course we talk
hmm
about video conferencing, and that is, what does the background look like, and what does that really say about the person? Um, so I think, those are the things that you have to, work around and everything else. But Zoom is here to stay. There's no doubt about it. But I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of how we use it, and not always use it as the default way of communicating.
hmm I think of the terms like everything, there's something about a hammer and nails. When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So it's like you, even though it's convenient, we could just say like, okay, this everyone will be able to do and it's accessible. But I think you need to think deeper of what are you trying to get out of your meetings? And I think that's a good thing in general because we talked about like Zoom fatigue. I think meeting fatigue is a thing in general. What is it that you're really trying to get out of this meeting? Is this just, touching base, talking back and forth where something like Zoom would be super useful? Or is it something where it's creative, you're working on a project, you need that back and forth where you're like, you need that human interaction?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did talk a little bit about that. The meeting fatigue has been going on for decades, or since the beginning of time in the workplace, right? And so we always criticize the bosses. Oh my God, another meeting, another meeting. And of course, in business and certainly in our classes, we talk about how to run meetings efficiently, right? And all that kind of stuff. So, and I think that's even more important if you're going to have more of them, and they're going to be on, again, this platform. Then you really got to make sure that you're pulling somebody in. Make sure it's quick. You tell them what you need to tell them, and then get off, because people don't
Mhm.
want to just sit here for that amount of time. But okay, great. Anything else that you wanted to talk about as far as Zoom, or
Let me look at notes if it's there. One of the things that you had asked prior is whether or not Zoom or like these kind of video things are just something that I use at work, and I thought that was interesting
mm,
because it is really just used in a work setting or creatively like with the podcast. Um, but I do see people, they do like video messaging. Like I think we talked about it in the social media episode where you're able to video chat with someone and you're able to get that connection. And I wonder if it's similar because it's a more casual environment. You're around your friends and things. I personally don't use it because I'm a big texter. Texting is everything. I don't know if it's a young person thing, a me thing. Um, but people do use video chat in that way.
yep, yep. There's no doubt. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, it's not just in the workplace. Obviously, during COVID, and you and I talked about this
Mhm.
when we were in the office, about how, obviously, COVID was really the thing that really launched Zoom.
Mhm.
Now families get together. I know I've got a good friend. Every Friday, the family gets together from all over the country. They have their Friday family extended family time, and
Mhm.
I think that's great. I think it's wonderful that you can do it, and they all want to do that. So that's right. It's a great mechanism for that. But then again, does somebody say suddenly, okay, now I've got to be at home at this particular time for that?
Mhm.
Because now, right, that's the whole idea, for everyone to be there. Of course, you don't have to necessarily be there, right? Then you could just use your phone and you can kind of be a part of it,
Mhm.
that way. So yeah, no, I certainly see that in certain environments. We've got the use of the video with healthcare, right?
Oh yeah.
In hospitals. Again, I had a cousin who was in the hospital, and of course, the doctor was on the big screen asking questions. The nurse was prodding my cousin and everything else, and saying, "Right here, this is where he hurts," and the doctor's talking and everything else. So there's no doubt that, again, back to this whole idea is, this is here forever. I mean, this is what we're going to be using, and so the whole idea is whether we use it for social environments, whether we use it for our working environments. There's no doubt, and I have to imagine that there are other areas that are starting to think about how they can use it to maximize a level of productivity.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. So that's that. And we want to just a lot of people maybe listening are already familiar with this and everything else, but maybe they can think about Zoom from a different, or video conferencing from maybe a different perspective. Okay. So we're going to move from Zoom to the next buzz of
Mhm.
technology, and that is AI. And specifically, we're not going to take all of AI because, of course, we could be here for many, many hours. But we're going to talk a little bit about ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is this monster that is scaring everybody. And in the perspective of, and I say scaring because it's talking about putting people out of work.
Mhm.
Teachers in schools are saying suddenly now, how can we teach the students? All they have to do is chat GPT something. And now, the learning is being distorted because they don't have to go out and read a book or whatever. They can just chat GPT something, whatever it happens to be. I can honestly say that I have been using ChatGPT since pretty much since its inception,
Mhm.
back at the end of 2022. I use it for a different number of things. But Alicia, do you use ChatGPT,
Say. Mhm.
how do you use it, and what do you think of it?
It's wild to think that it came out like, oh, it's been a couple years now that it's been evolving, ChatGPT. But as soon as I found out about it, I was instantly interested. Um, I didn't think about it from like a work aspect at the time I was in college. So obviously everyone was like, oh my God, this is like the new thing. And for me, I was a little bit hesitant because I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like this feels like cheating. But then more that I managed to use it and realized that you can use it as a tool, not just as, because a lot of people, they're just like, hey, just generate me a text on this subject or blah blah blah, which we'll probably talk about it. The information in ChatGPT that it gives is not always accurate. It's not perfect. I mean, and like we said, we were starting from like the very beginning. It was even further off from perfect. Um, but I ended up using it a lot more creatively, because I play Dungeons and Dragons, which is a very visual, creative. I don't know how to explain it. A lot of it is in your head, and it's a lot like writing. So when found out about ChatGPT, the idea that like I could have it generate characters for people, um, I could have it create a description of a specific area. And I thought that was one of the most interesting things ever because you could make it so specific and it it was like magic, honestly, the first time that I used it.
Yeah, yeah, right. You can use that's one of the beauty. It's the modern version of Googling something, right? We would
Mhm.
Google it when we had a question or something. So suddenly now we're moving to the Chat GPT environment. Um, yeah, you mentioned you've got to be careful. You've got to be
Mhm.
careful with what you're getting. Just like uh, when the internet kind of first came out and everything else, and we're just going on there, and you have to be careful on what information is accurate versus what is not accurate. And boy, again, I use it, but it's almost like somebody sending me their resume or someone or a student sending me a paper, let's say even before ChatGPT, and I would read it to try to understand what the student is trying to say. Are there errors in there? And then, of course, in my courses, we're required to have citations and references. So do the references correspond to the citations? Are the citations accurately put together? That's exactly the same thing with ChatGPT. For the amount of work that I use it for, I constantly have to make sure that the information that I'm getting from it is accurate. Now, again, in some situations, it'll be 85, 90% accurate, maybe even 99% accurate. But okay, but I have to check it anyway.
Mhm.
Other times, it's given me some information which it's not accurate. And, that's where I think um, teachers and when teaching, of course, and giving assignments to students, they have to kind of be able to anticipate, well, what is it you really want from your students to be able to know, and how do you want them to be able to convey the information that they do know, right? And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why in schools, and I'm talking about K through 12 right now specifically, that suddenly teachers are requiring students to now write, now not doing everything on technology, but actually come into a room and write on a piece of paper or in a particular book, and to see that the individual has a knowledge of that. So, and
I can imagine that's detrimental for very young, like, because I didn't even think of it from that concept. Obviously, in college, once you're at this point, you have a basis of writing, you have a basis of all these things. But if little kids in like primary school are using these, they're not going to have the same basis of writing uh, that other people have had in the past. And I could see that as being very detrimental.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, because I'm an instructor, I'm a professor, and I do talk to teachers who K through 12, and it is something that that's something that they think about, and of course, a lot of my colleagues in the college environment too. We're certainly concerned because again, we want individuals to be able to pull the information from their mind and be creative in that area. And I think sometimes I think that ChatGPT can augment and support creativity. No doubt about that,
Agree.
because you can put in some prompts and it can generate something quickly for you, and then you can bounce off of those particular prompts. So you put in words that you want it to generate information from, and then from whatever it offers you, then you can go ahead and uh, come up with something or whatever it might be. So there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that that's happening. But of course, one of the questions that uh, uh, trying to, work out, and that is how much creativity is it pulling away from the human mind? And I think that's a good I think that's a good question. I think that's a good question that it's efficient. It can get you knowledge fast. There is some artificial intelligence that can create things. Um, I've created a couple of little flyers, but there's errors in some of them, right? And so not only do I do that, but then I have to pass it on to someone who's got a background in advertisement or marketing, and they can kind of clean it up a little bit. There's and you have to know how you're using it. And what your objective is in order to make that tool as effective as possible.
Yeah, and I can see a lot, like there's two reactions I kind of see to AI. Either there's the all in where this is amazing, this can do everything. Uh we don't need anyone to do certain things anymore. But then there's the other half of it where I very much understand where there is a level of creativity when you're talking about creating marketing flyers and digital design that you're not going to be able to get, I think, from a AI system like ChatGPT.
Right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And so, yeah, and then of course, what I want to do is just talk a little bit about what I believe the future for the workplace is with ChatGPT. And um, if I was giving any advice to organizations, I would say be careful about terminating people just because you think that ChatGPT can be your marketing person or can be your human resources person, or you don't need a junior person, because this is where um, individuals learn information. They learn information about the organization. They learn information about the products and services of the organization, and they're part of the culture on where that organization is going. And ChatGPT as artificial intelligence is support for all of that. I don't think it's replacement for that. And um, when we start getting into, when you and I have a conversation about just artificial intelligence in general, sure, we can start talking about unmanned cars, driverless cars, and that kind of stuff, and recognizing that the software that's used in there obviously has already learned the particular environment. But I'm a little hesitant, and I'm hoping that my hesitation that we're saying that ChatGPT is really going to put a whole bunch of people out of work. I'm hoping that I don't think it's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen. Of course, I'm probably wrong about so much.
So there, I was speaking with my boyfriend David this morning about one of the. It's not exactly ChatGPT. It's something part of Google. I believe it's Vivo 3, or it generates video, AI video essentially. And he was talking about it from a 3D modeling perspective, where he said essentially it makes the work of turning an image into a 3D model obsolete essentially. And I was talking with him back and forth of, well, while that may be that one part of it, wouldn't it be able to kind of make work more efficient? Like you're still going to need that person who can do that 3D modeling because they're going to be able to do very specific things that I believe AI will just never be able to hit.
Yeah, yeah, and of course we have to be careful when we say never. That's we have to be careful with that
Right
word.
now, I definitely don't.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. No, that's again, the fact that there's software that can do that. But again, individuals have to have a background in that. I mean, if I'm looking at something like that in 3D and I'm thinking, wow, okay, cool, or whatever, but someone who's got knowledge and is skilled in that, for them, they might say, yeah, but it's missing this part or it doesn't recognize whatever that might be. And then from there, moving that into another space, maybe moving the space will be a challenge. There is no doubt that we're going to continue to advance in this area, obviously. But I want to believe and I want to be optimistic that we can still continue to encourage ourselves and starting from school, education, workplace, that that we do continue to learn about what we need to know so that so that when we do see errors and then the more knowledge we have, the more then we can program software, design software for even more advanced environments.
No, for me, I feel like the ideal would be if it is a tool that's supplemented.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, a little bit better. Yep. Yep. I don't know why
Move mine.
Oh, oh, that's good. Yeah.
There you go. I'm the optimistic view that I am hoping for is that it's used as a tool to supplement people. So like David was speaking about the fact that this may take away entry-level jobs for people. A lot of people do that 3D modeling. That's how people get into the business itself. Thinking about like, okay, there's still people who are going to need to be trained and become better at this 3D modeling practice and stuff. Hopefully they're able to use these as tools so they're more effective, work gets done faster, and they're able to put more effort into the creative parts.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, sure. And so, I'm hoping that maybe, and again, our little conversation about technology, I've done a little bit about Zoom and Chatgpt. Maybe we've helped. It's a great conversation with us because I go into the classroom and this is what I'm sharing. But maybe others may have been able to benefit from this.
Mhm.
So great. Anything else, Alicia, that you want to share or
Nope.
we are good. This is our time together to share some of this. So thanks for being here. Always enjoy a conversation with you.
Always a pleasure.
Great, super. And so, and thank you all. And please subscribe if you like some of this. And as you can see, we're doing this raw. Where again, we're in our infancy. We're going to get better at this. But we're really having a good time with it. So everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you later. Keep it between the lines, right?
Mm.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We look forward to next week as we cover another cool and fun topic. This podcast was produced by Three Lions Production and sponsored by Con Consulting and Training. Until next time, keep it between the lines.